We were driving by and there was an old woman, probably about 50 or 55 years old. She looked even older just because I think she'd had a very, very hard life. And she was out there, it was probably about mid-30s degrees Celsius that day. We were driving by and she was picking through the rocks and the waste rock of this abandoned mine. And we knew exactly what she was doing because we've seen this quite often there. What she was doing was collecting pieces of fluorite, which is a mineral which is mined in Mongolia for fluoride, essentially. Actually quite a pretty mineral, it's purple in color. And she was picking out pieces of the fluorite because she could pick out a metric ton of this rock. She could sell it for equivalent of $7 or $8 American. Now, I don't know, you have to really appreciate how much rock that is. A metric ton of this fluorite is a lot of work picking by hand through a rubble pile. Anyway, she was picking out to get this money so she could buy some school supplies for her son, which was just amazing. And so we stopped and we gave her some water and some food, which she was very appreciative of. Just driving around, I probably had $300 or $400 on me, just as assurance whenever I'm out in the countryside, just to have money as backup in case you need it. And here this woman was, probably working a week on end just to get $8. And I wanted to give her something, but I didn't feel right just handing her money just over like that. I think she probably would have found that, guaranteed she probably wouldn't have accepted it for starters. So we drove on. I got my driver, Batsahan. I gave him $20. I just said, go back and give this to her and just say it's from you, because I don't want her to think she's accepting money from a foreigner or anything like that. She eventually did accept the money and she was very appreciative of that. But you see that a lot in Mongolia. You'll be driving by maybe a very small scale trench or a small scale mine, and there'll be many Mongolians picking through the waste rock because that's really their only source of income sometimes out in the countryside.
We are very passive, I guess.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. You've been under someone's control for 200 years, and then finally you thought that you got freedom. You just switched from one control to another control, see? So you've been, let's say, for about 300 years under somebody's control, so you can't really think that freely, and you became actually a little bit passive, I would say. And people start drinking because of that, I would say. All people used to live only in apartment buildings, and nobody actually owned private houses except, top leaders of my country. They all had special treatment. Well, and not only in my country, I guess, all around the world. Leaders and prime ministers, they have special treatment, right?
Economically, and it's almost as if they're trying to expand too fast. And I mean, you see extremely, extremely cheap buildings and housing just being tacked up, and stuff partially finished and was never finished, and trying to, I guess, feed the demand from the amount of people coming in from the countryside to live in the city. Just that, I mean, extremely cheap. That's sort of the feeling I got from it, and just extremely crowded, and some parts of Ulaanbaatar are very, very dirty. Some parts are very nice too.
Politics. No stable politics, no stable political system, no economical growth. Right now, the majority is Communist Party, and there are several other parties. But the thing is that these people are just fighting for their wealth, not for their country's wealth. Is a big issue, but maybe people see that, but people kind of I guess became ignorant because I would say because of 70 years of communism, because they were always suppressed of their they had to suppress their own opinions because of that. Right? You can't really state you couldn't really state what you wanted to state in communist system. And I think because of that, people don't really care about the system, the political system right now. Even they care, they can't express it, they don't want to express.
Mongolia itself being a country which is sort of growing economically, in the last 5 years they've seen a huge influx in foreigners such as myself. We call ourselves expats or expatriates, people that have come from another country to work in a foreign country. So a lot of restaurants and bars have catering to an expat society. So I think that's generally why you find a lot of restaurants which are very much like something you might find here in a Western society. But that being said, many of the bars and restaurants cater strictly to Mongolian clientele as well. I didn't generally go to very many of those places just because of the cuisine. I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of a lot of traditional Mongolian food, so I wouldn't want to go there. And you know, just the language barrier, you're more likely to find people that speak a little bit of English in a bar which caters to expats rather than a strictly Mongolian bar. It's good if you're going to travel around there and go to those places to travel with somebody who speaks Mongolian, so you don't get yourself into a bad situation.
Well, men are men, but they are tough. Well, compared to Canadians, that's true. Compared to Canadians, they are not so peaceful. They are wild. The answer to your question, why? I think because of the history. Well, Mongolians used to be really good fighters, and because of this, Mongolian men like fighting. This is in their blood. People ask me here. That's why I just concluded this is the stereotype of, you know, Mongolians, because people say, oh, horse riders, you are from Mongolia, so you have to ride a horse. So I say, yes, I did twice, but some people even ask me whether I ride a horse, you know, whenever I go to school. And some people ask me whether I live in a tent. You know, yeah, we live in tents, but it doesn't mean that everybody will live in tent, right? That's why I just assumed it's a kind of stereotype, right? And I guess it was because of marketing of my country to European or to Western cultures. They want to have, you know, more people coming and visiting my country, right? Because it's because of my country's wilderness. They want to have more sales. But it's not the only part of my country, right? Both, you have to show both, I guess. You have to show the wild and wildlife. You have to show, you know, people and countryside, but still you have to show, you know, the city and the life and the life of young people.
Time I was really in with a family, a married family with children, was in the countryside. And that's how I interpret it, is that it was more sort of gender specific roles. But I mean, the women didn't just cook. I mean, they helped. There were several times where there was female herders, right? So I mean, it's not strictly, you know, men are out with the livestock and working, and the women are stuck inside the gird. I mean, I don't think it's like that at all. It's not like that.
Approximately 8 to 9% of people in Parliament are represented by women. I've never heard about the women prime minister in my country. I've never heard about minister, women minister. Only men. Although I seriously doubt that they have education skills. Some of them, I won't say that they're all, not educated well, right? But I would say some of them do. They lack sometimes education.
I'm near Altai. On one of the properties that I was working on, we came across a gur, which is not uncommon, obviously. But the strange thing about this gur was there was no adults around. It was just 3 kids between the ages of, I'd say, 5 and probably 12 or 14. And they were living at this gur all by themselves, looking after a herd of probably 60 or 70 Kashmir goat. This is what they did. Now, we asked, and through translation it was a bit difficult to understand, but we believed that that was their summer job and that their parents were living in a nearby village, but these kids were looking after themselves and staying in this gur looking after the herd of goats for that summer. And it was really great. I mean, you go up and these kids were so happy, so independent, and you'd never find that here in Canada, I don't think, just the amount of independence that they had.
I've been here for 3 years, and I guess, living alone here and, being exposed to Canadian culture will influence on my way of thinking, and it had actually influenced, I would say. I became a little bit more, I won't say that I am like Canadian, but a little bit more individualistic. Inspired by my career, maybe I will think about my future goals, and this is what actually individualism in Canada. I don't know. I don't really know.
No?
Yeah. Well, I would say because of this globalization fact, right? Well, very soon I guess all countries will look alike. And there will not be specific values, especially in Mongolia, after being in approximately 10 years in market economy. Many traditional values, they just disappeared. So economy maybe goes up, but traditional values and traditional thinking goes down. So I can't really say what values I want to be, viewed by foreigners. I can't say, because I don't know whether they still exist in the country.